And I was like, are you kidding me?
I've had more advisors than years of school right now.
Trying to manage everything was very difficult, if not impossible.
We hadn't had a raise in 10 years.
It's just been a little confusing.
I don't know, but pretty much everyone I've talked to said advising here sucks. So it's a common complaint I hear.
During COVID and the 3 years after it, academic advising was a big problem for SIUE. In this podcast, we will explore why this happened and has advising changed for the better.
Hi, my name is Sierra Folkerts, and I am a sophomore here at SIUE.
And I'm Emma Gonnet, a junior attending SIUE.
And we are your hosts, and you're listening to Ill Advised.
One senior at SIUE, who would like to remain anonymous, started his advising experience during COVID years.
I've probably had 5 or 6 different advisors. This is my senior year. I feel like that's kind of a lot in general. And I've switched around between like engineering advisors. I'm in civil engineering. But besides that, like I've had engineering advisors that they told me like I'm not an engineering advisor. Like I'm just filling in for whoever left us. So, and yeah, schedule's been messed up. Like I have a class I'm supposed to take next spring that I need a prerequisite for, so I have to take like both of those at the same time. I'm not sure how that happened. It must be hard. I think they're just understaffed personally. Like there's obviously a lot of kids on campus, and it keeps growing every semester. I started my year, let's say freshman year here was like the COVID year, so I can understand there's a lot of adversity with that, like having Zoom meetings for meetings and everything. It's kind of not as personal as meeting in person. But I just hope things can get back to normal. Freshman year, they're trying to get you in. They're trying to make sure you're happy here on campus. And I switched, for some reason, they switched to advisors for my sophomore year. And even my mom, I joined the Zoom meeting. She's like, this doesn't make any sense. And sometimes it feels like they're just trying to pass you off to another person and say they don't have time for us.
Ella Forlines, a junior at SIUE, is one student who experienced many hiccups during the rough advising years.
I've had many problems with academic advising at SIUE, whether it's being told I need to take a class that I don't actually have to take, or a class that has a hold on it because I'm not the right year in school. But I'm now a junior at SIUE and on my 6th advisor, and it's just a lot of stress on a student's mind when they keep getting thrown around from people who should be helping them throughout their whole course of their years of schooling.
Alexander Brown, a senior at SIUE, has experienced advising from the side of being a transfer student.
So I transferred here from Southwestern Illinois College in Belleville. I prefer SWIC's advising because there was more structure to it. I feel like with the change of advisors here on campus, there's kind of a lack of structure. I kind of felt like it was kind of pointless because I have an idea of what classes I could take. I could go through DegreeWorks and pinpoint what specific classes I want to take for my degree. And I feel like a lot of these advisors are kind of just like, oh yeah, these are just like classes that we recommend that you can take, but they might not really do much towards your degree, or it just kind of is a waste of time. And so that's kind of one thing that I'm very concerned about, is just I don't want for my time to be wasted by poor advising.
Alex Lindenberg, another student at SIUE, ran around campus trying to get people to sign a paper because that is what her advisor told her to do.
So I emailed my advisor at 3 p.m. on Sunday. And I was like, hey, is there any way we can get this switched before school starts? Let me know. Doesn't email me back. Doesn't email me back Monday. And finally emails me back Tuesday when she's like, oh, by the way, you have to run around and get all of this signed. So I run all the way back to Pack Hall, and I'm like, hey, I need my advisor's signature. And they were like, oh, you actually don't need that for this paper. I was like, are you kidding? And I was just so incredibly confused and angered why I had to run around and do all this stuff when no one else had to. And it was my first week of college.
Sydney Gordon, a senior at SIUE, has also experienced miscommunication in advising.
I really don't remember the amount of advisors I've had. I just know every time I start a new semester, I get a new advisor, and at the end of the semester, I get another new advisor. So it's kind of just, I feel like I've been tousled around between different people, and it's just been a little confusing.
Most students would expect to not be thrown around from advisor to advisor, and Gordon mentions how she believes advising should be.
I just feel like personally, I just don't know who they are. And I feel like for an advisor to be a good advisor, having that relationship you have, like from your first time you get your first advisor when you declare your major, it should be the same till the end, since they know who you are and they'll know your schedule and what you're trying to do. And having a new advisor every other semester or even every semester, you know, you kind of lose that connection you had with the last one, and now you're like, oh, I gotta tell this person my whole plan all over again, and sometimes they don't get it and they mess it up. So it's been frustrating.
For these 3 years, SIUE was not holding to this idea for many students. This begs the question, why?
To answer these questions, we decided to visit the College of Arts and Sciences and the John Martinson Honors Program to interview a few advisors and see their side of the story. First, we met with Megan Arnold, one of 2 advisors from the John Martinson Honors Program, who was also an advisor for the School of Engineering. During these past couple of years, she mentions how the numbers of students she advises has fluctuated.
I had almost 600 students. And according to the union, 375 at the time was the limit. Now it's 350.
This dramatic change was due to some of her fellow engineering advisors leaving.
I have felt overwhelmed. At the time it was in engineering, that was when I really felt overwhelmed. But part of that was because we had lost 2 of our 5 advisors. So there were only a couple of us left. And so we were having to take over for everybody while they got permission to rehire.
Now, what does she mean by getting permission to rehire? For this answer, we go to Brian Hinterscher, who is the Director of Advising for the College of Arts and Sciences. In the summer of 2022, one advisor decided to leave the department, which would not seem like a big deal, but this new initiative made a small issue turn into something much bigger.
It was just after the university put forth the strategic position alignment, where we had to put requests in to have positions to be able to be approved to get posted through the administration to be able to be passed on to human resources. We put that in July. It was not until December when we had 2 more advisors decide to leave their positions here that we were able to post for 2 advisor positions at that time.
With this initiative, SIUE doesn't have a hard time hiring new advisors, they have a hard time retaining them.
The beginning of January, we had a 4th advisor leave, so January of 2023. And we ended up, just before the posting closed for the 2 positions, we got approval for the additional 2 to have 8 advisors back in the CAS advising office.
With the constant filling on vacant advisor spots, it brings the question of why advisors are leaving.
In a lot of ways, we end up being the fall guy. We end up being the person that gets blamed for things. It's just kind of the nature of where we sit between student and university. So I think that's the primary reason why advisors at large leave.
Justin Huff, an advisor at the College of Arts and Sciences, also mentions the heavy workloads advisors had in the past and still have today.
You know, in the past when we were understaffed, caseloads were, 400 or something like that. And so trying to manage everything was very difficult, if not impossible. So it was really just kind of doing the best you absolutely could with the time that you had, and trying to at least maintain some sort of work-life balance.
While being a director, Hinterscher noticed a desire for more from his advisors.
I can tell you the advisors left on their own accord. All 4 were looking for more of an advancement in their career. So I could see they had some frustrations.
Huff noticed a combination of things for why his coworkers started leaving.
It's a very unfortunate situation. I know that there's a variety of different issues and stuff going on. One of them is, pay, of course. I know that's kind of everywhere. But, it is a thing of trying to be competitive with other universities with their wages. Caseloads have been kind of crazy. There's been added administrative work that we've needed to do. So it's really kind of piling on, which makes it pretty difficult.
One thing everyone can agree on is that advisors struggle with their pay.
For a long time, up until about last year, advisors hadn't had a raise in 10 years. So they, other than like the cost of living 1%, 2%, whatever, once in a while, we hadn't had a raise in 10 years. And so last year our union really went to town and they got us the raise. And that was important. But I think that was the other reason why a lot of people were leaving about a year or two ago. I think that's why most people were leaving. It's because we weren't marketable.
Salary that they had, honestly, looking at an average across other universities for the Midwest, it was low, because there were other institutions in the area that were offering more money for their advisor positions.
To be an academic advisor at SIUE, one has to have a master's degree. The pay range during COVID times was around $36,000. In recent times, advisors have received a little help from their union when a demand for better pay was needed.
The discussions that upper administration had with the union, helpful for the advisors to get a salary increase. In October of 22, the advisors were notified that they would get a salary increase.
Now advisors receive $42,000 to $46,000 depending on the level of advisor they are. Sadly, this pay raise didn't satisfy what advisors wanted or needed.
Our union did fight to get us more pay and stuff. This was probably, I want to say 2 years ago, maybe. And so it is better, than what we had before, substantially better than it was before. But I do know, compared to other universities, it's not quite the same.
While things are not perfect, things are definitely better for the advising offices.
Though students have had a tough time with advising, it cannot be understated how much the students still appreciated advisors. Students like Cameron Linsky and Jesse Russell, who both have had amazing experiences with their advisors and want better for them.
I think the honors advisors work really hard given the situation they're put in, and I appreciate them for what they do.
They're not being treated well, and it's not giving back to the students.
Even students who had issues with advising, like Forlines and Gordon, appreciate the work that they do.
So after all of that, how do you feel about advisors?
I don't blame advisors for my problems because they're only doing the best that they can, and I really feel bad for all the things that they have to juggle.
On the advisors, because I do want to say most of my advisors I've had have been absolutely amazing.
Though things are better, there can always be improvements, and both students and advisors have opinions on how things could be better. Huff brings up one way he would like to see improvement.
I think, honestly, if it was possible, I guess in kind of a perfect world, it'd be having more advisors. I think that would be nice.
I would definitely say a lack of advisors. There's not enough people to tend to individual student needs, which I think is a big problem.
Many students, like Gordon, would like to see advisors receive better pay.
We know how much we pay for tuition, so it's kind of sad to realize that maybe our tuition is not going towards advisors who are making sure we're getting our classes done on time, that it's probably going to someone higher up who probably doesn't do as much as everybody else below them.
These improvements can only come if students and advisors keep talking about advising and caring for the advising programs.
But for now, we just have to keep making sure that SIUE gives advisors the care that they deserve. This has been Sierra Folkert
and Emma Gonnett
on Ill Advised.